In the heart of another rushed morning in downtown Chicago, the building lobby was already buzzing. The fast click of heels and the hum of quick conversations bounced off the marble floors and glass walls. Most people had their eyes glued to their phones or hurried past without stopping, each caught up in their own daily race. It was here that Elena moved quietly through her routine, dressed in her dark blue janitor's uniform, pushing her cart and carefully mopping the floor, just as she did every morning. Few people glanced her way, and even fewer noticed her at all. She had become almost a part of the background, working with steady hands while the busy world spun around her. That morning, though, something unusual broke the routine. As Elena was wiping a corner by the elevators, she started speaking on her phone, her words slipping into smooth, fluent Mandarin. Nearby, Arthur, the CEO of Sterling Consulting, paused in mid-stride, caught off guard by a language he wasn't expecting to hear in that bustling lobby. The sound pulled him from his thoughts, making him look over with growing curiosity. He couldn't help but wonder how someone who had seemed invisible until now could speak with such confidence, and that moment would end up changing much more than just the course of his morning. Arthur found himself pausing longer than usual as he watched Elena. She had just finished her phone call and was now calmly speaking in Spanish to a delivery driver who seemed lost, pointing him in the right direction with ease. Not long after, a woman stepped out of the elevator and approached her nervously. Speaking smooth French, Elena answered her questions, smiling and helping the woman find her way to one of the conference rooms. With each interaction, Elena moved seamlessly from one language to the next, like it was second nature. She stood there, still pushing her mop, but her words were filled with the confidence of someone who truly belonged in an international, professional setting, regardless of what her uniform might suggest. Watching her, Arthur felt a pang that surprised him. It was a mix of amazement at her skills and a sinking feeling of guilt. How had he never noticed Elena before? How could someone with her talent, who could make guests feel at home in 3 different languages before the workday had barely begun, just blend into the background day after day? He had walked these hallways for years, passing Elena many times, yet he now realized her presence had been practically invisible to him, and probably to everyone else too. Unable to shake off his curiosity, Arthur finally decided to speak with Elena. He approached her as she arranged cleaning supplies near the lobby entrance. At first, Elena looked a little surprised. No one from the top floor ever stopped to talk to her unless something had gone wrong. Arthur started the conversation by complimenting her on how effortlessly she switched between languages. Elena replied with a small smile and explained that she enjoyed learning languages and that it had always come naturally to her. The more Arthur asked, the more amazed he became. He learned that Elena was fluent in 9 languages. Not only did she speak Mandarin, Spanish, and French, but she had also mastered others, including Italian, Russian, and even Turkish. To Arthur's disbelief, Elena added that she often read books in Latin just for fun, finding it calming after a long day at work. She told him all this with a calm honesty, never boasting or making herself seem more important than anyone else. There was no hint of pride or bitterness. Elena spoke with the kind of assurance that comes from quiet resilience, shaped by years of carrying her own unseen stories and challenges, each word revealing a little more of the person she truly was. Beneath the simple uniform, Arthur, feeling both intrigued and unexpectedly moved, turned to Elena with a gentle invitation. "Would you mind joining me upstairs for a few minutes?" he asked. Elena hesitated for a second, still holding her cleaning cloth. She had cleaned the executive floor many times, but had never been asked to go there as a guest. It felt odd, even risky, but something about Arthur's tone told her it was genuine. She agreed, carefully placing her supplies aside and stepping into the elevator with him. As the elevator doors closed, A quiet tension filled the small space. Arthur stared at the floor numbers lighting up one by one, while Eleanor watched her own reflection in the polished wall. Both sensed that the next few moments could change things forever, though neither spoke. The silence was not awkward, but rather expectant, like the pause before something truly important. When they reached the executive floor, Arthur led Eleanor through wide glass doors into a bright office that overlooked Lake Michigan. Eleanor took everything in without showing awe. She noticed the long conference table, the shelves lined with awards, and the large windows letting in the city and sky. But to her, the space felt distant, almost cold, a world apart from the everyday life she had always known just a few floors below. They sat across from each other at a small table near the tall windows. Sunlight spilled over the polished surface, shining on the stacks of paperwork near Arthur's elbow. He broke the silence first, gently encouraging Elena to share her story, something he now realized he had never heard. Despite seeing her in the building for years, Elena took a deep breath, searching for the right words, then started quietly. She described growing up on the South Side, the daughter of hard-working parents who cleaned offices by night and worked in a bakery by day. There was never much money, but there was always determination. Elena spoke about earning a scholarship to the University of Illinois, something her whole family celebrated. Her dream was to become a translator, but after a few semesters, everything changed. Her father got sick and her mother needed extra help at home. When bills piled up, Elena left school and took any job she could find to keep her family going. Still, she never stopped learning. She borrowed language CDs from the library and picked up second-hand books, learning new words, hearing unfamiliar sounds. These things kept her going on dark days. Even when she felt invisible to the world around her, books and languages gave her hope and purpose. Arthur listened carefully, realizing that Elena's quiet strength filled the room more than any award or title he had ever seen. There was something moving in the way she spoke about her choices, never asking for pity or making excuses, just sharing what had happened with an honesty that was almost rare. She talked about working long nights, juggling cleaning jobs, and taking care of her small daughter, Mia. He sensed the pride she had in raising a child who loved going to the neighborhood library and who already spoke 2 languages at age 7. It struck him that Elena was determined to give her daughter everything she had once hoped for herself, a future built on learning and hope, not just survival. As Elena spoke, Arthur's thoughts drifted to the degrees and certificates lining his office wall. All that seemed less important compared to what sat in front of him, a woman whose courage and skill came from living, not just from textbooks. He realized there was no arrogance in Elena, only the calm of someone who had fought through real challenges. Her story was not about giving up or waiting for favors, but about persistence and caring deeply for those she loved, choosing every day to keep moving forward no matter what. All throughout the rest of the day, Arthur found his mind wandering. Back to his talk with Elena, he tried to focus on the usual flood of emails and meetings, but her story and calm confidence kept coming back to him. He realized there were so many talented people in his company who went unnoticed, and that thought sat heavy with him as he looked out over the Chicago skyline just before sunset. Right then, he knew he needed to do something about it. So, as the office began to quiet down and most people headed home, Arthur rode the elevator down to the basement level where the janitorial team gathered at the end of their shift. Elena was there, organizing her cart, just like she did every evening. Arthur greeted her, and this time there was purpose in his voice. He explained that he needed someone who could help with an urgent meeting. Executives from Spain and China had arrived earlier than expected. Without a skilled translator, the meeting would stall. Arthur didn't even get through his whole sentence before Eleanor agreed to help. She picked up her notebook, and followed him upstairs. Once there, she quickly slipped into her translator's role, bridging ideas and cultures, letting everyone finally connect as if they had spoken the same language all along. During the meeting, Elena did much more than repeat words from one language to another. She made sure everyone really understood each other, catching small cultural differences and explaining things so nobody felt out of place. When someone cracked a joke in Spanish, Elena didn't just translate the words. She found a way for it to feel funny in English and Mandarin too, which made the whole room burst out laughing. Quickly, the tension that had filled the air before melted away, and all the talk moved easier, as if these executives had been colleagues for years instead of strangers from different parts of the world. The visitors seemed genuinely surprised by how smoothly everything was going. They looked at Arthur, nodding gratefully, and one of the Spanish executives finally asked where Elena had come from, thinking maybe she was an outside specialist flown in at the last minute. Arthur smiled, this time with real pride. She's been here all along. We just never stopped to really see her, he answered. That moment hung there, quietly powerful, making the whole group pause. Elena felt noticed, not just for her hard work cleaning floors at night, but for the rare skill and kindness she brought to every corner of the building. After the meeting, Elena quietly returned to her regular duties, picking up her cart and making her way through the hallways just as she had every other evening. She thought about all that had happened, replaying the conversations and the laughter in her mind. Still, she did not let it go to her head. For Elena, helping at the meeting was simply another chance to be useful, to contribute something real, even if most days those efforts went unseen. She moved from office to office with her steady pace, feeling quietly proud, but there was no show or bragging, just that deep-down satisfaction that comes from knowing you made a difference. Arthur, however, saw things with new eyes. After seeing how Elena transformed the meeting, he realized he could not let her talents be overlooked any longer. As he walked the length of the quiet top floor, he thought about all the times people came and went without really seeing the value in the folks around them. That day, something had changed for him. He knew now that real potential did not always show up in resumes or business suits. Sometimes it walked quietly through the corridors, waiting for someone to finally notice and make space for it to shine. The next morning, as Elena was finishing up her usual tasks in the break room, she got a message to come up to the executive floor again. She wiped her hands on her uniform, not really sure what to expect. The elevator ride felt a little longer than usual, and as she stepped out, she could sense something was different. People who usually hurried past stopped to glance at her, whispering in small groups by the windows. The air was charged with curiosity, like everyone was waiting to see what came next. Arthur greeted her with a warmth that put her a bit more at ease, then invited her into the large conference room. It was there, with the city stretching out. Behind him, that he laid out his plan. He wanted to create a brand new job just for her, one that would pull together everything the company needed when it came to cultures, connections, and languages. No one else had ever held a title like this at the company before. It would mean working closely with teams from around the world, interpreting, helping bridge differences, making sure people really understood each other. It was a bold offer that broke every rule she knew, but Arthur spoke with real hope and respect, as if this idea could change everything. Elena stood there for a moment, the buzz of the executive floor fading behind Arthur's words. She felt nerves twist in her stomach. She had never worked at a desk before, never worn business clothes, and her only degree was from the school of real life. Even so, Arthur looked at her with complete confidence, as if none of that mattered. He told her again, gently but firmly, that what really counted was everything she had picked up outside classrooms. Her dedication, the way she managed to bring people together, and her instinct for spotting what others missed. Those, he said, were skills even the best schools could not teach. She hesitated, thinking back to long nights cleaning empty hallways and making sure Mia finished her homework before bedtime. This offer was more than just a change for herself. It was a door that might never open again. Taking a deep breath, Eleanor accepted. She did it not out of pride, but because she recognized what it meant. It was a chance to take her story in a whole new direction, and maybe, just maybe, to show that people like her had more to offer than anyone realized. And for the first time, the next step felt possible. Word of Elena's new role traveled through Chicago tech like wildfire. By lunchtime, it felt like almost everyone in the building had heard the news, all the way from the IT department on the 7th floor to the folks manning security at the front desk. Some people grinned and congratulated her in the hallways, excited to see someone they knew finally get a shot at something bigger. A few even said it gave them hope, like maybe opportunity really could come from anywhere. But not everyone was happy. Some co-workers questioned how someone without a college degree or any office experience could land a job made just for her. They wondered if Arthur was just making a statement or bending the rules. Elena felt the eyes on her every time she walked into a room, the curious whispers that shook her confidence when she overheard them in the break room. It was tough trying to keep her head up with everyone watching, waiting to see if she could actually handle it. Still, she managed to smile and focus on her work. Deep down, Elena knew this was her chance to prove herself. Not just for her own pride, but for every person who ever felt overlooked. That drive gave her the energy to move forward, even when the days got hard. On her first morning in the new office, Elena carefully folded her old blue cleaning uniform and placed it in a drawer by her desk. She asked if she could keep it, not because it reminded her of tough times, but as a quiet sign of how far she had come. For her, it was not about shame or the past. She wanted a reminder of what it had taken just to get through those doors in the first place, and of everyone still outside, looking in. Elena understood her new position was about more than just her own success. It challenged old habits and ways of thinking at Chicago Tech. She did not have to wait long for reality to set in. Before lunch, she was called into a glass-walled meeting room to meet Daniel Kim, the head of international operations. Daniel barely looked up from his laptop when she walked in. His tone was clipped as he rattled off the complexities of contracts with offices in Shanghai and Buenos Aires, making it clear he did not trust her experience. He questioned her ability to handle these situations, hinting more than once that someone with a background like hers should not be working on global problems. Elena listened, refusing to back down or let his words shake her. Elena listened closely to everything Daniel said, making careful notes and asking a few smart questions. Even though he doubted her, she kept her voice steady and calm. She chose to meet each challenge directly, diving into the thickest paperwork and taking on the toughest responsibilities first. In just a few days, she tracked down mistakes that had been dragging on for months, unclear agreements, missed deadlines, and simple details no one else had spotted. When a misunderstanding popped up between a team in Chicago and one overseas, Elena stepped in with a quick call, smoothed things over, and found a middle ground that worked for everyone. She did not make a big show about it or go out of her way to get attention. She just kept solving one problem at a time, and slowly people began to notice. Even Daniel, who barely hid his doubts at first, started stopping by her desk to ask her advice. That evening, Arthur came by her office, leaning against the doorframe with a quiet smile. He told her how impressed he was with the energy she brought, and how the whole atmosphere on the executive floor already felt a little bit different. Then, in a soft voice, He shared that his own journey had started at the bottom too. Arthur said he recognized that same grit and drive in her that he had needed once, and that knowing she was there gave him hope for others who needed someone to believe in them. Even with all that Eleanor had accomplished in those first few weeks, she could not ignore the tension hanging in the air. There were still people who resented seeing her in an office instead of her old cleaning uniform, and the whispers grew louder as her successes stacked up. One morning, as the autumn wind rattled the tall windows of the building, word spread that Margaret O'Neill from the board had asked for a meeting with her. Margaret's reputation was well known across Chicago Tech. She was sharp, traditional, and rarely tolerated anything that strayed from the established path. At the meeting, Margaret sat across the long, polished table, eyes steely as she questioned Elena. She brought up Elena's lack of any framed diplomas, mentioned how her work history started in the service entrance instead of a campus hall. Some members of the leadership team looked away, maybe uncomfortable, maybe just uncertain how this showdown would turn out. But Elena did not shrink from the moment. She calmly laid out the numbers: faster deal closings, smoother team collaborations, and fewer misunderstandings with international partners. She spoke clearly, sharing stories of tough negotiations and showing how her background made her better at building trust. The boardroom grew quiet as her steady answers spoke for themselves. After the tense meeting wrapped up, Elena felt totally drained. She left the boardroom, walked past the polished elevators, and pushed open the heavy doors. Onto Michigan Avenue. The air outside was chilly but clear, and she took a few deep breaths, letting the city noise replace the buzz of judgment lingering in her mind. It was tough, always being in the spotlight and knowing that so many people were still waiting for her to stumble. Feeling a knot in her chest, she called her daughter Mia. The moment she heard Mia's voice, cheerful after school, chatting about a new science project, Eleanor felt a little lighter. She told Mia about her rough day, leaving out the details, but admitting it was hard. Mia, as usual, just told her to keep going, to show everyone what she could do. Those simple words gave Elena what she needed. When she headed back upstairs, Elena noticed things were different. Someone from IT left her a fresh cup of coffee with a note that read, "Welcome aboard." A woman she barely knew from accounting gave her a thumbs up in the hallway. Even Daniel, always reserved, gave her a small nod of respect. Little by little, Eleanor realized that her presence was opening doors for others, and she was not fighting this battle by herself anymore. As weeks passed, Eleanor's reputation grew throughout Chicago Tech. She was not just the one people called when they needed help with a tricky document in Spanish or Mandarin. She became a go-to for advice about the daily challenges of work and life. People from marketing, security, and even research started stopping by her office with questions, knowing she would actually listen rather than just give a quick answer and send them on their way. Elena's way of paying attention, really looking at people and letting them finish their thoughts, made her different from most managers anybody had ever met. Soon, interns began lining up outside her office for guidance, asking about how to talk to their supervisors or how to handle the pressure of deadlines. Some team members who in the beginning had doubted Elena's experience now found themselves popping in to ask for her perspective before big meetings. She took the time to share what she had learned, never talking down but showing, with simple stories from her own journey, how kindness and hard work could make a difference. Elena even started a weekly coffee hour, inviting people from any department to drop by. It did not take long before her small efforts created a real feeling of community on her floor. Seeing the changes Elena brought, Arthur began thinking about how many others in Chicago Tech were still being overlooked, just as she once had been. One afternoon, while sharing a coffee in the break room, he floated an idea to her. What if they created a special program to look for hidden talent among staff who usually got ignored? Elena's eyes lit up at once, feeling the possibilities. Arthur suggested she take the lead, and together they named the project Bridge Forward, a symbol for building paths where there had never been any. Bridge Forward kicked off with a meeting that was open to everyone, not just managers or anyone. With the right background, Elena personally invited janitors, cafeteria workers, assistants, and tech support staff. Word spread quickly, and the response was bigger than they expected. People brought their stories, skills learned outside of work, degrees from other countries, creative hobbies that had never found a place in a job description. Elena and Arthur put together teams to help people polish their resumes and connect with colleagues who could use their strengths. Within a few months, the atmosphere at Chicago Tech noticeably shifted. People stopped seeing others only for their job titles and started talking about what each person could offer. More doors opened, and the workplace felt warmer and more welcoming for everyone. Eventually, Elena's work at Chicago Tech caught the attention of industry leaders all over the country. She received an invitation to speak at a major tech conference in New York City, held at one of the big convention centers near Times Square. The room was packed with people from every corner of the field, engineers, project managers, even CEOs. Standing at the podium, Elena spoke openly about the years she had felt invisible, just another face in the background, and how much strength it took to keep showing up day after day. Her words about resilience and the importance of looking past surface labels hit home with the crowd. She talked about her journey from cleaning offices to leading Bridge Forward, focusing not on her own success, but on what others could do if given a real chance. She encouraged everyone to notice the quiet talents around them, the people whose stories had not yet been told. As Elena stepped off the stage, people lined up to speak with her. Some had tears in their eyes. Others looked relieved, as if she had finally given voice to things they had felt but never said out loud. Many shared their own struggles, thanking her for helping them believe their background mattered too. In the end, Elena never tried to become someone she was not just to fit into her new role. She carried every part of her story openly, from her first days pushing a cleaning cart through downtown offices to her time speaking in front of crowds at big industry events. Elena wore her journey as a badge of honor, refusing to hide her past or pretend that her experience was something it was not. She often reminded people around her that talent could look like anything, that it did not show up only in people with certain backgrounds, the right college crest or fancy titles. Because Elena stayed true to herself, others at Chicago Tech and even at other companies across the country started feeling comfortable stepping forward too. The walls that used to separate people, the ones made of quiet judgments or assumptions, became a little less solid as her influence spread. Doors that had been closed for years slowly creaked open, letting in people who brought new ideas and fresh ways of seeing things. Elena's story showed everyone that real greatness could be sitting right down the hall, maybe in someone no one ever thought to ask for advice. Sometimes all it takes is a chance and a little courage to look closer.